Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my breakdown of the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft in terms of fantasy football. We are not only going to be talking about the players that were selected that were relevant to fantasy football, but we are also going to be discussing how this would affect their teammates based upon where they were drafted yesterday in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my fantasy relevant breakdown of the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. At number 1, to a shock of absolutely no one, the Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Now, Bryce Young does have a great skill set. It makes sense that he was drafted number 1 overall, but based upon the offense that he's being put into in Carolina, he's not a guy that I think could finish top 12 at the quarterback position. Now, could he have top 12 weeks? Definitely. There are tons of quarterbacks that have top 12 weeks, which is why so many people enjoy streaming quarterbacks during the fantasy football season. And he's probably going to be a guy that doesn't even get drafted in the top 10 rounds of fantasy football drafts. So what I'm saying is not really a hot take. His teammates are decent, right? He has Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall, and Hayden Hurst to throw the ball to. So again, not some garbage wide receiver core, but nothing to be enamored with. None of those weapons were top 100 picks either in fantasy football drafts right now. His running back is Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders, at least as of right now, is the lead back on the team. I don't think this move negatively affects any of these weapons. I think it is definitely more positive than what the Carolina Panthers could have rolled out with Andy Dalton, but again, it's nothing special. It doesn't move the needle for me in year 1 because of the skill set of the players. If they had an excellent wide receiver, I would be ecstatic that they selected Bryce Young, but they just don't. Again, Adam Thielen, some of these guys could be good. DJ Chark could have a good year. But again, these aren't these top upper echelon line guys, so just about all right. They got Bryce Young. And number 2, the Texans select Stroud, quarterback out of The Ohio State. Now, there was a lot of talk going into the NFL draft that maybe the Texans wouldn't end up going with a quarterback, but they'd go with Stroud. There was also a lot of talk about how, hey, maybe Stroud isn't the sharpest knife in the cupboard. He's not the biggest genius, but we saw he played at Ohio State. I think he'll be just fine in Houston. Now, again, just like Bryce Young, he goes into a situation that's all right? They have okay weapons. They have Nico Collins. They have John Mechie. They have Robert Woods. So it's not like he's going to a team that is absolutely dog shit in terms of the weapons department. But again, nothing that wows me. So Stroud, could he have some top 12 games? Yes. Am I drafting him expecting to be a top 12 guy? The answer is no. The only thing that's positive for is, again, if you like Nico Collins like I do, you like him as a late round dart throw, this is great. If you like Dalton Schultz because you liked what he did in Dallas and you think in Houston he could be a big weapon for this team, this is great for him. But again, Stroud kind of underwhelming in my opinion for fantasy football this year. Now, in a couple of years, could he be a top 12 guy? 100%. But in year 1, I don't see it. And number 3, Will Anderson, great pick, not fantasy relevant, but good pick to the Houston Texans. They trade up with the Cardinals to do that. At number 4, the Indianapolis Colts select Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. Now, if we know anything about the Colts, it's that for the last couple of years, they have had a carousel of garbage old quarterbacks, from Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan. It was bad. And they even had Phillip Rivers a couple of years ago. Now, they bring in the young gun Anthony Richardson with elite rushing upside. For fantasy football, if you want to group all of the first-round quarterbacks, Young, Stroud, and Richardson together, because Will Levis, that mayo-eating bastard, didn't get drafted, Anthony Richardson has the most upside, which leads me to believe that he is going to be the highest quarterback selected in fantasy football in terms of the rookie class this season. Because of the rushing upside. People will galaxy brain themselves into Trey Lance, so you can easily galaxy brain yourself into Anthony Richardson with an offense of Jonathan Taylor, of Michael Pittman Jr., I almost forgot his name, of Alec Pierce, right? They have legitimate weapons in Indianapolis. Am I the biggest Anthony Richardson fan? Fuck no, baby. But do I think that Anthony Richardson has fantasy value in Indianapolis? 100%. Do I think he's going to be the day one starter? 100%. And do I think he could be a top 5 quarterback in fantasy? Yes. Now I'm going to rank him as a top 5 quarterback? No, because that's insane. I won't even have him ranked in the top 12. But would it surprise me at the end of the year if a guy with the rushing pedigree, the arm of Anthony Richardson, finished that high? No. Just saw Justin Fields finish amazingly. Justin Fields isn't the best passer alive. I think Anthony Richardson can get it done. Again, I'm not here to get down on my knees and gawk this guy. Because again, I don't think he's the most talented quarterback. I think Bryce Young is. But in terms of fantasy upside, Anthony Richardson has exactly what you want to have that elite fantasy season. At number 5, we have another non-fantasy relevant pick. The Seattle Seahawks select Devin Witherspoon. Makes sense. At 6, the Cardinals select Paris Johnson Jr., O-tackle, Ohio State. Great for Kyler when he comes back. But again, doesn't necessarily move the needle for anyone on Arizona. At 7, the Raiders select Tyree Wilson, edge rusher, Texas Tech. Makes a lot of sense for the Raiders, but again, nothing fantasy relevant. The fantasy relevancy comes here at number 8 with the Atlanta Falcons selecting Bijan Robinson out of Texas. Now, there was a lot of rumors going into the draft that he'd be a Falcon. I didn't think it made sense because I thought Tyler Algier was good enough, but they don't go that way, obviously, because they draft Bijan Robinson. I did not have them selecting Bijan Robinson in my mock draft. This guy is a freak. Dominant running back. 50 Shades of Grey style. The Falcons love to run the rock. The Falcons have yet to select a quarterback. Now, could that change in day 2? Could they take Will Levis? Could they take Hendon Hooker? Definitely. But in terms of what we know right now, they're rocking with Desmond Ridder. They got Drake London. They got Kyle Pitts. They have the cool skill set of players. They have an elite skill set of players, especially if Kyle Pitts takes it to the next level. Same with Drake London. They have the pieces. Now, would I rather have had Bijan go to some other team that's better than the Falcons? Sure. But do I think he could be a top 12 fantasy pick in Atlanta? Yes. Do I think he'd be a top 8 pick in Atlanta? Yes. We saw it last year with the Falcons. We saw it with Tyler Algier, who's a less talented running back than Bijan Robinson by a country mile. Or is it quarter mile? Whatever. By a million miles from here to the moon. Bijan Robinson is much better. Is a team, again, that commits to the run. When they are getting the ever-living dog piss beat out of them, they run the rock. So I'm very excited for Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. I think he's still worthy of a top 12 fantasy pick, and I'm going to keep drafting him there because, again, I think he's worthy of it, even if the quarterback play is bad. At number 9, the Eagles select Jalen Carter. Easily probably the best player in the draft, has some character issues, but he goes to the Eagles. The Eagles dominated this draft. Number 10, the Bears, Darnell Wright, O-tackle. Great, makes sense. Protect Justin Fields. The Titans, instead of going with the quarterback, they protect Ryan Tannehill, but maybe they'll end up with Levis, or maybe they'll end up with Hendon Hooker for the future. At number 12, the Lions select Jahmyr Gibbs. And this was a pick that shook me to the core. Looking at it right now, it surprised me again because of how fucking stupid it is. Dan Campbell, what are you doing? You have DeAndre Swift. Jahmyr Gibbs is DeAndre Swift light. And you take him at number 12 overall. And you just brought in David Montgomery. So what this tells me, bye-bye DeAndre Swift. He has to be gone. You don't go into the season with Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and fucking DeAndre Swift. You don't do that. Makes no sense. And why would you get rid of David Montgomery? Because David Montgomery is so different to Gibbs and Swift. So this has to tell me Swift is on the way out. Because if they enter the season with all three, these guys are going to all bust in fantasy football. Because you can't have a three-headed running back core work for fantasy football. It could work in the NFL. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs they could all be decent, but it won't work for fantasy football. So I hope, for the sake of anyone who has already drafted any of these running backs on any best ball sites or that has them in Dynasty, that Swift gets traded. The pick shook me. I guess I get it if Swift gets traded. But it really was weird. Because look, Bijan Robinson just went. You could have waited. The Lions could have traded back. They didn't have to come up here to get Jahmyr Gibbs. They really did not, in my opinion. Maybe one of the other teams would have taken him, but I just don't think so. After the Gibbs pick, we see another run on non-fantasy relevant players. The Packers kind of cock tease us. I was thinking, oh, it'd be so funny if after Rodgers gone, they draft a weapon. They go receiver, tight end. Nah, same shit, different day. Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. 14, the Steelers go with Broderick Jones, protect Pickett, tackle out of Georgia. 15, Will McDonald had a farm, EIEIO, edge rusher out of Iowa State to the Jets. 16, Emmanuel Forbes to the Commanders, cornerback, Mississippi State. 17, New England Patriots, Christian Gonzalez, cornerback, Oregon. Surprised he fell that far. I think that's a great pick for the Patriots. Nice, but I wanted the Patriots to take a receiver, if I'm being honest with you. At 18, another non-fantasy relevant player, linebacker, Jack Campbell to the Lions. At 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I thought, oh, maybe Levis is going. Nope, they're sticking with Baker, Faker, Mayfield, Kalijah Cansey, the defensive tackle, Pittsburgh for the Bucks. And number 20, we start the run at wide receiver. 4 wide receivers in a row. Number 20, the Seattle Seahawks select Jackson Smith-Njigba, JSN, the best wide receiver in this class out of the Ohio State University. So I was so excited for JSN going into the NFL draft. I thought if he landed in the correct spot, it would be a wet dream for fantasy football. This guy's great in the slot. He's got the speed. He's got the hands. He has the intangibles to be great for fantasy football. But of course, he goes to the Seahawks, where, look, he could have a decent year. Could have a great end of the season, maybe. But in terms of fantasy football, this landing spot stinks. Because they have Metcalf and Lockett, and their quarterback is Geno. So this is a big push for Geno. I thought Geno might fall off, but no. They bring in Njigba. If he falls off, it's because he sucks ass, because that's yet another weapon. So for Njigba to really succeed, for him to be a really fantasy relevant player, to be a player that you were happy you selected, someone has to get hurt. Knocking on wood, I don't root for injuries. That's what has to happen for him to be relevant for fantasy football this year. Now, in the future for Dynasty, this could be great because Lockett's getting up there in age. So great for JSN in the future. But for year number 1, this reeks. This stinks for JSN. Again, great for Geno. Nice to see. Maybe a small hit to Kenneth Walker because maybe he gets less targets. Look, could he have a great end of the season? Yeah. Could he really catch on? Sure. If there's an injury, he could be amazing. But based on the situation we're sitting at right now, without an injury, at the beginning of the season, it's hard to see me wanting to put him in my lineup or even close to the lineup. And based upon where I've already drafted him in best ball drafts, like pick 60 or 70, or even maybe in the 50s, it was a huge reach. Number 21, can you do something to me? The Chargers, LA Chargers. Can you do something for me, not to me? Pause. LA Chargers select Quentin Johnston, wide receiver, TCU. Another good pick, but another pick that kind of sucks for fantasy football this year because the Chargers elected to keep Keenan Allen. As so they say. They have Mike Williams. So another great move, like Geno Smith gets the big plus for JSN. Justin Herbert the pervert gets a big plus for Quentin Johnston. But am I going to be ecstatic to draft him in fantasy? No. This destroys Joshua Palmer's value. Any value that man had has been X'd out. So again, could Quentin Johnston have a great end to the season if someone gets hurt? Yes. Justin Herbert's great enough to elevate him. The problem is, do I want to draft the number 3 receiver on a team in fantasy football? Am I ecstatic to do that? No. And because he got first round draft capital, it's not like he's going to be this free pick at the end of drafts, I don't think. I think he's going to be talked up, even if he's not. Like, I think he's still probably going to end up being like a top 10, 11 round pick in fantasy. The skill's all there. He's amazing, just like JSN. Obviously, he's a step down from JSN, but he's still great. Out at TCU. Pull on the tape, throw on the tape, your eyes will ejaculate. He looks great. For Dynasty, amazing. Link to Herbert, Keenan Allen's getting old. He's probably on the out soon. But for year number 1, this kind of stinks. And let me know down below if you guys have any other takes. Like, maybe you're like, oh shit, he's on the Chargers. This is amazing. Let me know. 22, the Ravens, another receiver, Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. I've seen a lot of steam for Zay Flowers. He looks good on tape. Makes sense that he was a first-round pick. I kind of thought he'd be a first-round pick, so perfectly fine with that. There was a lot of reports that the Patriots, who went at pick 17, really liked Zay Flowers. So again, I was kind of shocked. Didn't go offense, but again, they are the Patriots and they just do the safest thing possible. So Zay Flowers goes to the Ravens. Good for Lamar. Not great for Zay Flowers. They have other options. They just brought in Odell. They have Rashad Master Bateman. Sure, maybe he'll be ahead of Bateman as the WR2. But they also have Mark Andrews. So again, another scenario. Great for the quarterback. Wet dream for the quarterback. He's got all these weapons. For Zay Flowers, year one success seems pretty low. Now again, for Dynasty, these are all fine. They're all fine. But for redraft, like, I just don't know how you get excited for it. But this next pick, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC, goes to the Vikings. Now, he's not necessarily the Adam Thielen type build, but he's not super huge. But he's now the number 2 receiver ahead of KJ Osborne for the Vikings. They also have Hawkinson. Another plus for Big Kirko Chains. This does nothing for Justin Jefferson. You're still going to draft him number 1 overall, potentially, with supreme confidence. You don't have to worry one bit about Justin Jefferson. But like I said, Jordan Addison is in a position that these other guys aren't in. JSN, probably the wide receiver 3 for a majority of the season. Quentin Johnston, probably the wide receiver 3, unless those injury-prone receivers get hurt. Knock on wood, don't for injuries. Zay Flowers, probably the wide receiver 3. Jordan Addison, or Zay Flowers, I said. Jordan Addison, clearly the wide receiver 2 behind Justin Jefferson. This is a good offense. Again, the defense is sus. They're pretty imposter team last season, right? Everyone talked them up. They were frauds. But guess what? The defense doesn't need to be great. It's even better if the defense sucks ass for Jordan Addison. It means more time to catch footballs. So this is the guy that I'm really excited about. This is the guy where if you draft him in the 5th round, you're fucking laughing straight to the goddamn bank. I love Jordan Addison. Do I think he's the best receiver out of all these guys? No. You might even want to rank him number 4 where he got drafted. But guess what? Landing spot is key for redraft. For Dynasty, sure, Jordan Addison might have the best first year, but maybe he's okay year 2, and the other guys are better. But we're talking redraft, and Jordan Addison is now the number 1 rookie wide receiver for me in redraft and in best ball. Now, there's only one more fantasy-relevant player. We will go through the rest of the picks, though. Number 24, the Giants were a team that kind of looking like they wanted to go wide receiver, but the run happened before them, so they go Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland. They traded up with the Jags to move past them. Yes, it does kind of make sense, because the Jags do need a corner. The Bills take the last fantasy-relevant player, Dalton Kincaid, tight end, Utah. I love Kincaid. Did I think he was the best tight end in the draft class? Not necessarily, but could you argue that he was? Yes, so I'm not going to sit here and try to fucking argue with no one. Right? I like the pick for not for best ball. I think he's a decent best ball pick. I like the pick for Dynasty. Sucks for redraft. Let's be honest. Dawson Knox just signed back with there. Maybe they'll use 2 tight end sets, and maybe Kincaid ends up being a fucking beast. But based upon what I know right now, with how Dawson Knox produced last year, Dalton Kincaid is just about the opposite of exciting. Like, sure, he lands on the Bills so he could score like 12 touchdowns in the season. But what's the probability of that with Dawson Knox also there? Was this going to be fucking Gronk and Aaron Hernandez, the killer duo? Don't think so. Don't think so. Number 26, Cowboys go with Mozzie Smith, D-tackle, Michigan. 29, the Saints go with Brian Brees, like Drew Brees. D-tackle, Clemson. Eagles go with Nolan Smith. Again, the Eagles dominate this draft, double Georgia. And then KC goes with Felix Andulak Uzama. If I pronounce his last name wrong, I apologize. Edge rusher, Kansas State. Again, overall, I think the Eagles dominated the first round. I think the Lions swung and they missed. And I think the Texans should be pretty happy with Stroud and Will Anderson. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Again, I'll state again. The NFL fucked the Dolphins in the ass. The Eagles and the Cardinals had to make trades because there was, quote-unquote, tampering with their coach selection from the Eagles coach going to the Cardinals. So why don't they lose a first-round pick? But the Dolphins do. Make it make sense. So thank you for watching. I love you guys all deep down. Let me know in the comment section what you guys thought about the draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I think this was a fun draft. There was a lot of trades. Not a lot of interesting fantasy options going early, but, still got a long draft. Still going to find some late round guys that I love in fantasy that end up sucking ass. That's how it goes every year, baby. And that's why fantasy football is so fun. I love you guys all so much, deep down the bottom of my heart. I hope your team had a great draft. Day 2, day 3 coming up. Love you guys all so much. There'll be more videos about the draft. Have a great guys' day. And as always, good boy.